You may remember in a previous video, in regards to fixing the Wheego's many problems, I said the following: if I can fix them for free, I'm going to. Otherwise, absolutely not, because any value or parts or money I put into this car, I will never see again. Well, I guess what happened since then? I changed my mind. I threw tons of money, parts, and time into this crappy little car. Why did I do that? Well, I'm not just this Wheego's owner, I'm its caretaker. And as such, I had to refill all the love that had leaked out of it over the years. I had a lot of little things to fix on this car before I started. I fixed the wheel bearing and the vacuum pump for the brakes in a previous video, but after that I still had tons of work left to do on this car. The first couple of things that were broken in this car were absolute failures on my part, but I'm going to briefly describe to you what happened anyway. The first thing I tried to fix was the broken window switch. There's not much more to say here, it was just a piece of broken plastic. I tried to fix this with epoxy, going in the notion that I might be able to fix some things for free, and it didn't work. While I was down in Atlanta filming the Wheego video in November, I stopped by the Wheego warehouse in my spare time to have a chat with the tech support department. And by tech support department, I mean the one guy that worked there. While I was there, I bought a new window switch pod from them. It was readily available, so why not? It may have cost me some actual money, but I fixed the broken window switch problem with ease. My second failure was trying to fix the broken door lock solenoid without just buying a whole new part. And actually, I thought this would be pretty easy. When I got it out of the car and took it apart, an act that took a lot of frustration and shouting and throwing things, I found out that it's actually not a solenoid. No, it's just a cheapy Chinese DC hobby motor turning a gear that turns a plastic worm drive. The quality may be tremendously cheap and unacceptable, but it's also incredibly serviceable. There are no electronics in this part, and the only thing that was broken was the motor itself. What I did to try to fix this part was browse a local electronics recycler to find a motor with the same dimensions as the dead one. And I found a good, well, what looks like a solid replacement. It's dimensionally exact, which is important. And it is right here. It's this little guy. All I had to do was chop the shaft down to size, stick a gear on the end, and shove it into the old casing. It did end up working, but it only worked once. Stopped working. It moved. The problem was that the shaft of the motor slotted into a smooth nylon gear. The dead motor that I took out of the actuator had a splined shaft to grip this gear, while the new motor had no such thing. I tried various techniques to adhere the shaft to the gear, but after a couple failed attempts, I got really tired of ripping my hands apart inside the sharp, jagged Wheego door when I was testing the modifications, so in the end I gave up. You'll see the end result of that in a moment. In addition to the window switch pod I picked up while I was down at the Wheego warehouse, I also picked up a couple of Wheego badges and a little plastic cap to spruce up the exterior of the car a little bit. The rear badge was delaminating and the front badge was just gone, so I felt the need to replace them. A little interesting fact for you is that these badges are actually badges for the low-speed Wheego whip. They were out of the fancier laminated badges that actually went with this car, but I don't see this as a real issue because those badges would probably delaminate again like they did the first time, and no one is going to know the difference except for me. And now you. Right, badges look much better. Blinkers could still use some work. Anyway, the piece of resistance, this little plastic button I mentioned earlier, that's for this little screw cap. It was missing, so I got a new one. That makes me feel a lot better. I made another order of parts from Wheego, directly from Wheego, and I got some real good things. First of all, I ordered a new door lock actuator. Now, I was hesitant to do this because I had to order the whole thing as a unit, which included the door latch, which I don't need, and I'm probably just going to take the actuator off of it because that latch is pretty much impossible to get out of the door. So I think I'm going to save myself some time and headache and just take the actuator off and put the actuator on the old door latch. So that's one thing. That'll probably be the first thing I do. Another one is marker light. Because the rear marker lights on this car are crayon colored, I got some new ones. Very excited about this. And I didn't just get a marker light down here on the floor. It's a new bumper! A new bumper piece! Mine has this big old crack right here that someone haphazardly attached with sheet metal and rivets just to keep it from cracking more. It's ghastly looking, and it comes with a new marker light already installed. I'm excited about this. I got a whole new body part. He said this was one of two, and it's pre-painted to match the car. Wheego has amazing service. The guy there told me, and I went to visit them, the guy there told me that they made less than 100 of these cars, and he's the only one. He's the only tech support guy and the parts guy at Wheego. So I just call him directly and get all the parts I need. And these were not expensive parts at all. Granted, this bumper piece, for example, while I did get direct access to it and it shipped right over here, color matching and everything, it has some scratches on it, which if it were any other car, it would be kind of unacceptable. There's some scuffs back here. It's a little bit scratched in places, but that means I can just drop it on the floor and not really care about it. I also got, and this is huge too. Hey, the background noise stopped. In this box here, a laptop, a Gateway netbook. Now you may be thinking, well, that's stupid. It has nothing to do with your car. But not only do I get the netbook, buried under here and on all of this is diagnostic equipment for the Wheego. This is super exciting. I don't remember the name of the connector, but to connect to the BMS system in the car and the Curtis control module, I think it was. I'm probably mistaken on that. But anyway, to connect to the car, he sent me a loaner diagnostic setup. So I'm going to connect this to the car over Wi-Fi, and he can do remote, by he I mean the guy from Wheego, he can do remote diagnostics on the car to fix the battery meter in the car. How cool is that? All right, first up is the assembly of the new door latch. Now, or door actuator is what I meant to say. The old door actuator, I think I made a valiant effort of trying to fix it without ordering whole new parts, but in the end, it's just better to order whole new parts. Hopefully this new actuator lasts a lot longer than the old one, because the old one only lasted less than 10,000 miles. Who knows how long it's been broken? It was broken when I got the car. I don't really have any faith in it, but I never want to see it again. And I've done it like 3 times now, so that doesn't actually help. Well, let's just plug it in. And before I reassemble the whole door, test it out. Lock, unlock, lock, unlock. It's locked. Can I unlock it? Can I unlock it? I can't unlock it. Unlock it. Oh no! Oh no! I just tested something on the other side. If you're pulling the interior door handle, while you're trying to unlock it, it prevents it from unlocking. So, what has likely happened here is that I pulled the inner door cable too tight on purpose because the end of it was frayed. I cut that little frayed bit off, which caused the cable to be shorter, which means it already had some pre-tension on it to begin with. So, what's happening is I installed the door handle, it's got some pre-tension on it, the cable is being pulled just enough to prevent the car from unlocking. Because you can't pull the door handle and unlock the car at the same time. So, that's probably what's happening. I have no idea how to fix this situation. All right, I've stewed on it a little bit, crawled in from the other side of the car, and I've thought about this, and I think, let's get comfortable here. I think I should be able to unscrew the door handle from the door panel, pull the backside of it through enough that I can either unscrew the cable tie thing at the end, or, worst case scenario, yank it off. Yeah, I popped the cable. Well, I didn't need to unscrew the door handle for that. Now, if there's no pre-tension on the latch cable, can I unlock the door? Yes! Oh, okay. Thank God. I've been to the store and I got some parts to fix it, but before I do that, or I think fix it anyway, hopeful thinking, wishful thinking, let me explain to you what the problem actually is visually. So the cable end, this is hard to do, cable end fits in right here, in this little slot here. I realize I'm blocking the light. This is the handle, actuation right here. This little nubbin on the end of the cable fits into this little slot here, and it pulls the door cable to open the door. The problem is, this cable end was incredibly frayed. I couldn't get it into this little end cap here, so I clipped off the end, roughly about, I don't know, 7 millimeters of length off the end of it, so that I could have a non-frayed bit of cable to slide right into this little hole here to cap the end off. No big deal. The only problem is, that shortened the cable enough that even in its all the way adjusted out state right here in this slot, I have to pull on the cable has to be pulled out slightly just to fit into the door handle slot here. And as I found out, when the cable is pulled out even a little bit, the door handle is actuated and you cannot unlock the door anymore because there's a mechanical stop in there of some sort. So what I've done, I hope that was a good enough explanation. What I've done is I've gotten these little end caps here from Lowe's. I'm going to, so I got an extra little piece of cable, extra little bit of cable there. I'm going to add a little cable extension on the end here. It should be just enough, and I can put the cable here, have a little bit of cable extension out here, maybe an inch or so, and I won't have to pull out on the cable. I can resume actuation of the door handle all the way and have slack in it, basically just extending the cable out. It's really not that complicated, but I thought I'd give a better explanation than verbal. So I'm going to start doing that. It does honestly feel like it's adequately crimped, but I'm not doing this again. I'd say here is just about where it needs to be. Slot that in. Right about there. Follow it through. Rotate it a bit. There we go. Now that's there. And I can slot this into its little position on the door. There is so much room for adjustment in here. And then door handle bloody works. Yes. Oh. Well, I broke it and then I fixed it. Congratulations. On with the rest of the door. Wish I remembered where all the clips were. There's one right here. By the way, fun little fact about the Wheego is that most cars, if you hit the lock button, it locks the car. If you hit the lock button again, it honks just for affirmation that the car is indeed locked if you're at a distance or something. Well, the Wheego doesn't do that. If you hit the lock button, it honks every time. Every single time you hit the lock or unlock button, it honks, which is annoying. And what's happened many times is I've accidentally hit the button in my pocket and it scared the crap out of me. But anyway, this works. The manual lock works, mostly. Yeah, it works. It's good. I'm going to finish putting the screws in the door and then I will be done with the door, thank God. One last thing helpful to know is that this little window switch pod is held in by a clip here and a clip here. It's extremely useful to know that if you're taking the car apart. I just found out by randomly prying on it, but the benefit of that is it just pops in place. Really should have tested that before I stuck that back in there. All right, now the door is reassembled. Time to, one last time, check everything out. Yep, there's the passenger, yep. Mirrors, yep. Crappy as it is, it does work. And then, unlock, lock, unlock. Perfect! Time to move on to bigger and better things. And now for the bumper and marker lights. The little bumper piece, I guess you could call it really a fender because it extends all the way over here. The new piece I got is to replace this one because, as you can see, this one has a big old crack on it right here that was held together with a piece of sheet metal on the back side here that you can't see, and some rivets. And aside from that, the marker lights, these little guys, on both sides are, well, pretty old crap. This one is turned to crayon. It's popping out of the fender, and the other side is also broken on top of being crayon colored. So I got a new marker light for each side, and then this whole new fender replacement. I do have one little problem. This is the new bumper piece. It's the same color, so I don't have to do any painting or anything like that, which is extremely convenient. But it's missing the little total afterthought reflective tape there that's on there. So I can either leave it off and have an asymmetrically reflective car, or I can take them off the other side, or I might be able to take them off the other side and find some reflective tape for trailers at Lowe's or something. That actually may not be a bad idea. But regardless, time to take this guy off to replace all of this mess. Now, even though this is a brand new fender, I have to do one little repair to it already. See how this marker light is just kind of popping out here? It's not really attached very well. Well, that's because of the ingenious design of these marker lights and how they fit into the fender. Because here's the other marker light. See how it has, this is hilarious to me, these little plastic pegs that stick up. Well, on the other side of the fender, they stick through holes. They're not held in by screws or mechanical fasteners of any type. No. Those plastic pegs, the part that sticks through the hole, are just melted flush. Because why not? It's hilarious to me. And these two aren't melted at all. They're just not attached. So of course it's going to pop out. So I need to, and there isn't much that sticks through here to actually fasten it down. So I need to get something very hot and flat and probably metal and just melt those down so it secures it in place. This design, oh my God. What I attempted to do here was heat up the end of a straight slot screwdriver with a torch to melt the end of the plastic rivet thingy, but there wasn't enough meat sticking through to melt over. So instead I just went with a screw, just a regular screw. I just screwed the marker light into place. It's probably the better approach anyway. All right, marker light is in place, firmly this time. Now it's time to install it back onto the well-made Chinese car. Oh God, that's atrocious seam alignment right there. Whew. Unfortunately, my microphone had died by this point without me realizing it. I'd like to think I said something meaningful and important, but I probably just said something self-congratulatory and rambled on a bit about replacing a stupid fender. Onto the marker light and the other fender. I realized at some point last night that my microphone battery had died, and I have no idea how much of what I was doing was inaudible. So here's a little recap. I put this little marker light in here, and because the old one I took out was glued in, I did the same. I glued it in, none of that stupid peg melting nonsense, the plastic rivet method. And instead of taking the entire fender off, I just took the inner fender well off and went from the back side because that was a lot easier. And now it's in, it works, and it's time to move on. Also, I removed the reflectors on this side and goo-gonned them and whatever, so there's only a minimal amount of sticky residue left behind. I would like to replace them, but right now I just removed them for symmetry because neither side has reflectors now. I think it'll be fine. Now it's time to move on to the climate controls. Now the heater and the air conditioner in this car both work supremely well. The heater especially, it works too well actually. It has this habit of either being full blast or not on at all. There's sort of no in between. It's just burning you out of the cabin or it's off. And the air conditioner has kind of the opposite problem because what it seemed like to me is that if you're going highway speeds, it barely ever kicked on. You could tell when it kicked on. You can hear the compressor spin up and everything. And when it came on, the air was nice and cold. But it didn't do that very often. Now I mentioned this while I was at the Wheego warehouse. I mentioned this to the tech support guy, and he said he probably knew the solution to this because these climate control knobs, the temperature adjustment knob is just a rotary potentiometer, no big deal. but he said the values for it, some of the potentiometers adjust themselves over time, or something like that. So the Wheego, this is another thing he told me. I think this is absolutely cool. If you put the Wheego into diagnostic mode, and you do this by starting the car up while holding the odometer stalk. I'm in diagnostic mode now, and if I go to the climate control screen, it tells me everything here, which is really cool. It tells me the temp set point, the cabin temperature, the evaporator temperature for the air conditioner, the pressure of the air conditioner, the switch, the blower input, whether or not anything's off, the compressor speed, all that wonderful information. But the one I care about here is the cabin set temperature, because this knob here, the typical blue and red knob, it's supposed to range from 68 degrees to 96 degrees. Mine doesn't. Mine ranges from 96. If you put it all the way high, it's at 95 degrees, sorry. But if you put it directly in the middle, it's still at 95 degrees. If you put it at about 3 o'clock, it's at 88 degrees, still quite warm. If you put it all the way cold, the lowest it goes to is 82 degrees. So that explains why my air conditioner barely ever kicks on and the heat is always at full blast. Now to fix this is sort of uncharted territory for me. He said to fix this, all you have to do basically is to take the potentiometer on the back of this. Now this is going from a lack of experience. I'll have to see when I take it apart. You take the potentiometer on the back and you rotate it. That's it. So you just adjust where the bottom end is so that the knob fits in the right range. It's cool. Hey, I don't know why. I think that's just neat. The problem is getting this off. When he was describing it to me over the phone, sounded incredibly difficult. So I might as well just get right into it. I've got the knobs loose. I know that on the back of this there is more than just a wiring harness. There's also a Bowden cable. Alright, just in case I'm being used as a source of knowledge in the future, God forbid, to get these little climate control knobs out and rearrange them, this little front facing here, it just pulls off. And then you can unscrew it, you'll see it, the 4 screws that hold in the knob assembly. And then once you have that, you can rearrange it in here. And it looks like just 4 screws on the back. Maybe I shouldn't give instructions till I'm done disassembling it, but just 4 screws on the back of this, so you have to turn it around in there to get to them. And then anything beyond that is beyond me, because I haven't gotten there yet. If Wheego is still around in the future and you do need help, I would suggest calling them, because Brian, the tech support guy, is very full of knowledge. He's been with Wheego since the beginning, I do believe. And he's the only tech support guy, so you get one-on-one help. So I did actually finally get it out of there. It was a bit of a faff. The knob on the fascia, not the facial part, the fascia part, the user interaction side of it, the knob stops about here, but the potentiometer stops roughly 45 degrees beyond that. I have the potentiometer turned all the way to its physical stop, and it's reading 68 degrees. If I were to refit the knob on there, just kind of putting it in place, in position, the knob is all the way on its cold setting, but the potentiometer allows it to go about that much more, which is roughly 45 degrees, if not a little bit more. So what I need to do, the potentiometer is held in place by what looks like a single nut, and then it has a little tiny hole drilled in the plastic casing where a little pin sticks in for positioning of the potentiometer. What I need to do is drill another hole, well, loosen it first, obviously, and drill another hole roughly 45 degrees to rotate the potentiometer counterclockwise so that its physical stop matches up with the physical stop on this knob here. Now, the reason it's not like this from the factory is because, this is what he told me, is that the potentiometers seem to have a mind of their own, and they either adjust themselves over time or they have different values from the factory. Regardless, it probably didn't come out of the factory this way. It probably came out of the factory with the ability to use air conditioning and set it to 68 degrees. But anyway, I just need to loosen that nut, re-drill a new little pinhole, rotate the potentiometer, and then reassemble everything. Yeah. Easier said than done. All right, the potentiometer has been rotate-indicated. And use this to hand tighten it. And with any luck, should be good. Fantastic! Now for the litmus test, it's been in diagnostic mode this whole time. Oh yeah! 68 degrees now. Let's move it one notch. Still 68, 68.4. Ooh, big step up. One more notch, 72. That, good Lord. In one single notch, it goes from 68 to 74. I'm just going to read you the notches. Notch 1, 68. Notch 2, 68. Still 68. Notch 3, 74. Notch 4, 79. In 3 notches, it goes from 68 to 79. What? Okay. Whatever. That's as good as it's going to get. I hate to say it. Well, I'll be able to have good, solid air conditioning, just not much control over the the range of it. God, this is hilarious. And it's all back together, just as good as I found it. Fun fact, if you ever find yourself doing this, unclip the cable from underneath the dash first, so you can pull the whole unit out without having to clip it off, unclip it from the back of this assembly. It's basically impossible. Actually, unclipping it isn't the impossible part. Clipping it back on is the impossible part. So unclip it under the dash first. It'd save you a lot of time and the headache that I just experienced. I tested it, everything works, just believe me, it goes to 70, 68, blah, blah, blah. Everything's back together. The radio didn't quite go in as it did before, and I'm not sure why, because I didn't touch it. It doesn't matter. On to the next thing. I noticed something when getting into the car the other day. This rubber seal had peeled back just a little bit, and peeking out from underneath was cancer. Rust. It's rusting right here. The paint is peeling away just a little bit, and it's rusting. Now, never mind the fact that rust on a 4-year-old car and rust of this much in a 4-year-old car is completely unforgivable. It's very convenient that it happened right here, because I don't have to do any color blending or anything. All I have to do is spray it with some rust, well, grind it away a little bit, spray it with some rust neutralizer, and then paint over it. And then I can hide my botch work with this seal. So, awful that it happened, great that it happened there. With the rust fixed, it was time to look at the faulty charge indicator in the car. Now, if you're not aware, in a previous video I mentioned that the charge indicator in this car was off by a factor of 4. What that means is that when it said 75% charge, it was actually at 0% charge. Now, while that's very optimistic, it's also wrong and misleading. Now, when I happened to mention this to the guy at Wheego, he theorized that some of the BMS modules in the car might be set to the wrong communication port, and they might not be communicating their information up to the instrument panel, causing the disconnect there. That's where the diagnostic laptop I mentioned earlier comes into play. He sent that to me for just the cost of shipping so he could remotely check out the BMS modules. I don't have any footage of this because frankly I just plugged the laptop up to the car and talked on the phone for a bit. But it turned out he was right. Some of the BMS modules on the car were communicating improperly on channel 0. This likely happened when they replaced a couple of the battery cells in the car under warranty right before I bought the car, and maybe the technicians just made a little mistake. Doesn't matter because I have a personal Wheego technician that just remotely set all the BMS modules back to their proper settings, and now the charge indicator works properly and reads from 100 to 0 like it should, instead of reading 75% when the battery is completely dead. So that's good, and it was basically free. I just paid for shipping for the diagnostic computer and setup. Hang on. That was supposed to be the end of the repairs on my Wheego, but Ironically, I had an incident at a gas station right after I had fixed the charge indicator. I went inside to get a delicious fizzy carcinogen, and when I came back out, I put the key in the car, I tried to turn it on, but it just beeped. A little wrench icon showed up on the dash indicating service was needed, and it was going nowhere. Thankfully, I still hadn't shipped back the diagnostic laptop and cables that I got from Wheego. So all I had to do was plug the laptop, well, after I towed the car back from the gas station on a trailer, all I had to do was plug the laptop into the car and call up my personal Wheego technician to see what the problem was. He could tell remotely, using the software provided, that it was just a failed contactor in the front. Well, if you're not familiar with a contactor, it's just a massive, massive relay. And what had happened is mine had overheated and welded itself shut. The car detected that, and it shut itself down for safety. That stupid little melted contactor thing was over $100 to replace, but at the very least I could get it readily and it was not difficult to swap out. I just had to take the main control board off under the hood and unbolt the contactor. It was like 20 degrees outside when I did this, and because it was dead I couldn't move the car, so that was painful, but it was fine otherwise. So that's it! My Wheego is now 100% perfect. Yeah, that's a lie. There's still some random blemishes around the car. The front turn signals are still chalky. All of the plastic and rubber in the car is either warped, cracking, or disintegrating. And it's still overall a large hunk of crap, but everything on the car is now functional, and the car is in vastly better condition than when I found it, and that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.